Hello fellow knitters, Allison here, and today I'm going to show you how to add a nice I-cord edging to a piece of garter stitch knitting. So garter stitch is pretty stretchy. When we're adding this I-cord edge, it adds a lot of stability to the knit, helps you keep things the size that you would like them to be, and it just adds a really nice finish. So I am knitting this on my shawlette version of my sideline shawl. It is a little mini version you can wear as a neck scarf, but obviously this works for any kind of garter stitch knitting and obviously for the full-size version as well. So to knit your I-cord, you're going to need your yarn as well as your DPNs. And I like to size up one size from the size that I use to knit the project. I just find that it works a little bit better and gives you a tiny bit of stretch in your I-cord without getting too big. So I have one side completely finished here. And let's look at this from the back of the work. So you can see this is pre-blocking. There is a little bit of the shawl showing through. So I'll show you how to minimize that as we work on this side. But because this is a little bit inevitable with how you are going to attach this I-cord, we're going to knit this from the back of the work. That way the front of the work has the nicest looking edge. So to get this nice clean edge on the front, we're gonna go ahead and work from the back. You can tell it's the back because here we have our seam from the intarsia knitting, and we're going to be working on this edge. The way that the I-cord is attached to the piece of knitting is by adding it to the bar on the edge of the work. So let me show you a couple to make it a little easier for when we're finding it later. We just need one bar in between these garter stitch rows. So I find it especially helpful to pull apart the work so you can see it a little bit better. And then there you go, there's a bar. So we're going to be finding these bars along the entire edge of the piece of knitting. To begin, we are going to need to set up our I-cord. And as you can see, I leave a little bit of a tail, just a couple of rows before starting on the work. That way, when we are sewing all of these ends together, we're going to sew this I-cord edge to this I-cord edge. It'll give us a little bit of room to create a nice edge here and totally cover the work. So to get started on that, we need to take our yarn and create a slip knot. And add that to 1 DPN and tighten it up. Then we are going to cast on 2 stitches because this is a 3-stitch I-cord. So that's all you need to cast on. We are going to push this to the other end of the needle and grab our other needle, and now we can get started. So this first row is a little bit awkward. I'm going to be holding this tail out of the way, and I knit with the yarn in my left hand, but obviously whichever knitting style works for you, and I'm gonna get as close as I can here. So all we're going to do is just knit these 3 stitches. So now we need to identify the first bar, which is a little tricky because there's so few stitches here. But to add it to the work, we need to take this, and before you move it down, we need to add a bar. So I'm gonna just take this guy right here. This is not actually a bar, this is part of the cast off, but to make it a little bit easier to cover that edge, I'm just gonna go ahead and work with that. So now we have 4 stitches on the needle, push it over. I have just adjusted to get my working yarn in a more preferable area to keep things from getting too tangled up. But we have our working yarn and our project in the left hand. All of these are just tails that we will use for finishing later. And we're just gonna start knitting again. So push it to the end of your needle, knit 1, knit 2, Then we're going to knit these two together through the back loop. Now, before we move on again, we need to pick up this bar. So pick up the bar here, push it to the end of the work, and then keep repeating that pattern. So we're just going to knit the first 2 stitches, not doing anything different here. And then we knit these 2 together through the back loop. And I am going to just show this a few times here. We're going to talk a little bit about the yarn showing through here. So because this is a darker color and I'm knitting a lighter color on top, it kind of naturally is hiding all of these red stitches underneath because it's darker. It's like hiding in the shadows a little bit, plus all of the speckles in this yarn kind of helps to conceal the stitches showing through. So let's talk about this, where we have a higher contrast and it's not working in our favor, where we have a darker yarn and a lighter background. So as you're picking up stitches, you can see where those stitches are being picked up. As you're knitting, you can just hold onto the icord and pull on the garter stitch fabric, and that helps to pull the icord over this edge. And if you want to be really precise about it, you can take your DPN and literally just push that down or pull up on this yarn, and that really helps to work the icord over this edge. But a little show through will probably happen anyway, and it's also why we're working this from the back so that we have this nice clean edge on the front. So you can see, you don't see any of that showing through, but you do on the back. So we're going to keep working this all the way along this edge of the work, and I will jump back in with you when I've made a little bit more progress. One episode of Veronica Mars later, and we're done. So I have completely finished off this little shawlette. I used all of those long tails to literally just sew the ends together, which you can't really see, which I kind of like. And then I weave the ends through the icord, which makes it super invisible. Now to finish this, I went ahead and did a steam block. You could obviously do a full wet block with this. If you're going to do a wet block, what I would recommend is just placing it straight into the wash and then fussing with your stitches and trying to pull them down and into place after it has been in the wash and before you set it to dry. If you're going to do what I did and steam block it, you can still see a little bit of it peeking through there, but it's a lot better than it was. Do all of that tugging on your stitches before you steam it. But that is it. That is how you attach an I-cord edge to a garter stitch shawl. I will have links to everything you might need down in the description, and I will see you next time.